Okay. Looks like we're here. What's up, everyone? Happy Saturday. It's November 6th of 2021. Wow. Well, I'm grateful to be back for another week of family education and support. If you're here for the first time, what's up, Jim? How's it going, bud? I got a new perspective, different angles for today, just to spice things up and end the year strong. So if you're like Jim and you've been here from the time of our inception, or like Lynn, whoever else is popping up, welcome back. If you're new here, let me do a quick introduction of myself. So my name is Param. I've been doing this group for a couple of years now. It started off in person at Buckeye Recovery Network, and then with the pandemic that happened, took this to a telehealth model and started doing this on different streaming avenues, and Facebook Live and YouTube Live being one of them. So if you're here for the first time, welcome. Let's see, what is this about? So every single week we come in here and we talk about different things, from addictions to mental health to recovery to communication, self-care, boundaries, learning about various recovery programs, 12-step programs, and a little bit of everything in between. I do some personal development stuff too to help the viewer and anything that might benefit them in their personal life, not just with the loved one, the addiction of their loved one. What's up, Eileen? And it's a good community. It's people that are committed to this. They come here every Saturday, and my goal is to always add some type of value to the day. So today's a new talk. It's something that I haven't done before. So if you're kind of the ones that have been watching this for a little bit, hopefully it is something that, it intrigues you. But a little bit about myself. So my name is Param, like I said, and I have a master's degree in marriage and family therapy, and I am a licensed advanced alcohol and drug counselor, so the addiction space. I do also coach high school basketball, and our season is alive and well. Next Saturday, I actually might not be able to do this, but we'll talk about this later. And I also am in personal recovery. So it's been about a little bit over 13 years, June 13th, 2008. 13 and a half years almost now, is my sobriety date. And I hope that my personal experience, my professional experience, my education, my knowledge allows enough credibility for this platform for you to hear. And good morning, Faye and Hamid, which is mom and dad, faithful viewers. Appreciate the support. So today I'm going to talk about this thing that it actually was coined in the nursing world. Okay. Hey, Alex, what's up, bud? Good to see you, man. Long time. So this phrase that I'm going to talk about here is was actually coined in the healthcare and nursing world. And last year, with the global pandemic that we had going on, we heard it kind of surfacing a little bit more. And what that phrase is, it's called the cost of caring. Okay. So the cost of caring. When you take care of other people, right? Like, for example, I have a dear family member, cousin just came on, that for the past few years of her life, she's been taking care of someone near and dear to her heart. And there is a cost associated to that caring. Okay. Again, this happened in the nursing world, the cost of caring. But I want to kind of explore this topic a little bit and kind of bring it into the recovery dynamic, because there is no lie that family members, whether they are grandparents, whether they're parents, whether they're spouses, whether they're loved ones, children, there is a significant toll and a cost associated to caring for those who cannot care for themselves. Now, whether that's a life development thing, end of life thing, an addiction thing, there is a cost associated to that. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going to explore here today. And so what is a day in the life of someone who is experiencing a loved one who's going through addictions, right? A day in their life. Well, I'm going to kind of state the obvious for some of you, but for someone that might not know about, or is getting exposed to this information for the first time, a day in the life of caring for someone who's unable to care for themselves it might become the norm in what you're used to, but it is very abnormal in the big scheme of things. Because what happens is this: you wake up in the morning and your whole mind, your psychology, your emotions, instead of being focused on yourself, is focused on the individual who needs the care. Because someone else's life may be at jeopardy. Someone else's life may be at risk. Someone else may be a danger to themselves. God forbid, someone else might be a danger to others, right? And when you wake up, you're not thinking about your regular day-to-day activities. You're thinking about that. And when you're thinking about that, so just in the addiction world, right? How many family members can relate with the thought or the idea that they wake up in the morning and maybe they don't know where their loved one is. Maybe they don't know where their loved one was. Maybe they look in their bank account and there's money missing. Maybe they get letters from courts that they missed some type of an appearance. Maybe they get letters from courts that says there's a bench warrant out for their loved one. Maybe they got in a really bad argument with their loved one. Maybe they found some paraphernalia, they found some drugs, they found something in the home one more time. Maybe their loved one is going through serious depression, anxiety. And what does that do to someone? Right? How can you live in that space and just be okay with everything? Well, the answer is you don't, and you're not. So what kind of toll does that take? So that's kind of the preface of this talk. And there is a phrase here that I want you all to learn. Some of you have heard me kind of talk about it a little bit. You know what's bothering me, by the way? You guys, this is a part, if you know my personality by now, you know that in the middle of my serious talks, I do these weird side tangents. So this is my sweater that I took out of the washer. I didn't let it dry because I didn't want to put it in the dryer because sometimes sweaters turn very, very small. So I put it on my hangers, my coat hangers. And it's got, so this little thing and this little thing, it just keeps sticking up from the coat hanger and it's driving me nuts. But that's okay because who cares at the end of the day? It's just two little lumps on a sweater. Back to the main topic at hand. What is vicarious trauma? Okay. So vicarious trauma is a result of being, Jim, thank you for laughing at me and making me feel a little bit better right now. I do. Now that I say it, you like, all you see is the little indent, like it's like two little baby bumps on my shoulders. But, you know, if I stretch it down, it goes away and I would have to hold it like this. But if I let it go, it just kind of creeps back up. But hey, we got to learn how to laugh at ourselves because this addiction stuff, this mental health stuff, there's not that many moments in between that we could laugh at. But so vicarious trauma, I want you to learn this phrase. It's a very, very important phrase. And it's as a result of being exposed to trauma. Vicarious trauma is a result of second-hand exposure to trauma. Now, if you're thinking that this just starts with the addiction of your loved one, I want you to pause and rewind the tape back into your own life. Into your own life. When you were little, when you were younger, then and there, when you were growing up, were you exposed to secondhand trauma? So it's not necessarily the trauma that the individual goes through individually, like personally. It's being exposed to an environment that could be traumatic. So, you know, we always hear about secondhand smoke when someone is smoking a cigarette. And if I'm in the vicinity of that human being, I can pick up that smoke and it can go into my lungs and it can actually impact my body negatively as well. Well, secondhand trauma, vicarious trauma, can have the same type of effect. Now, I mean, you guys all know that I come from a Persian Iranian culture. Between the years of 1980 and 1988, there was an 8-year war between Iran and Iraq, which is a form, when you're exposed to war, active ground battle, like, you know, bombs in the cities and people going and, you know, tanks and guns and all that kind of stuff, there is a collective trauma that overtakes a country, right? And that's secondhand. You're not even in the war and you're experiencing that. And some people have those same wars inside their homes growing up. Inside the home, maybe mom and dad, there's some internal civil war going on and the kid's just exposed to that. Maybe there was life circumstances, situations that you went through or a loved one went through. I had a client that said his whole life changed when his older brother passed away and died. So what kind of impact does that have? When his older brother passed away and died, the world of the mom and dad, it was completely shattered in that moment. And they stopped showing up for this young one. They were unable to. They were unable to cope, handle, manage. They were just struggling. So when they start struggling in life, when the mom and dad start struggling in life, as a result of secondhand trauma that wasn't his kids, it was his brothers. It impacted the way that he felt about himself. It impacted his self-esteem. It impacted his self-worth, all that kind of stuff. So vicarious trauma is exposure to secondhand trauma. And you got to look into your life. When did that all start for you? Right? And then when you get into the addiction world, so there is no lie and no secret that addictions, now whether it's drugs and alcohol, or it's spending money, or it's acting out romantically, sexually, or it's gambling, whatever it is, addictions, food, not only does it impact the user, right? I don't like to use the word the addict or anything like that, but it impacts the individual who's using the substance or acting out in the behavior. Not only does it impact them, and how does it impact them? Psychologically, it impacts the way they think. It impacts them emotionally, the way that they feel and internalize emotions and cope with emotions. It impacts them physically, the physical body. It impacts them spiritually. It takes the soul out of one's life, man. You see someone that's been using substances or acting out addictive behavior, you look at their eyes and sometimes no one's home. And it impacts them financially. There's a cost to this stuff, a financial cost. So if that's happening to the individual going through the addiction process, to those who are around that person, the mom, the dad, the grandparents, the spouses, the children, whoever's going through the experience of someone getting negatively impacted because of their health or their addictions, psychologically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, it starts to impact them also. And how does it impact them? In the exact same ways. So to the mom or dad watching this, or the child watching this that's taking care of other people, or has been taking care of other people for one too many days, how has your thought, thinking pattern, psychology, how has it changed? Do you wake up in the morning thinking about yourself, or do you wake up in the morning thinking about your loved one? How have your emotional experience, your emotional world, how has that changed? Are you cool, calm, collected? Are you always cool as a cucumber? Or are you always one phone call away, one incident away from being completely dysregulated to the point that you can't show up to your work or you can't show up to your friends? Physically, how is your health? You're not even the one using the drugs. You're not even the one going through the health challenges. But how is your health? When you go to the doctor, does the doctor tell you, man, you're so stressed out? Does the doctor tell you your blood pressure is a little too high? Does the doctor tell you, I don't know what you've been doing, but your blood sugar levels aren't right? Are you having problems sleeping? Are you having problems staying asleep? Are you having problems with your own mental health, with anxiety, possibly depression? Has your self-worth been impacted? How you feel about yourself as a parent, as a spouse, as a child? Do you feel like you failed? Do you doubt yourself? How has it impacted your spiritual world? And I'm not talking about the whole religious world or anything like that. Spirit within, deep within. How has it impacted that? When you look at the mirror, do you recognize the reflection looking back at you? Have you lost touch with that true essence of self? And how has it impacted you financially? I mean, as someone who works in the space of mental health and treatment, I know that there's a financial cost to this stuff. And it's a significant cost to this stuff. Some people are able to pay that because of their own sociodynamic, like their own financial world is able to, but most people that come through it are not. It's a very challenging time in their life. So how does that impact your own world and your own realm and your own experience? What did you have to sacrifice for yourself for that? So vicarious trauma, once you really look at the impact of exposure to the trauma of someone else that they're going through, when you look at it to yourself, all of a sudden it's this: who's the person going through the addiction and who's the family member going through the addiction? Because if I sat any of the family members that watch this every week, if I sat you down in a room and did an hour of therapy with you, the amount of emotions that come out are very parallel to the very same experience that your loved ones have if they sit in a chair. You know, Jim could be sitting in a group full of families. And if he does a process group, it's as if you're dealing with the same individuals. That's just the way these things are. It's because the experience, the leftover residual effect of experience of addictions is very similar between family members and those going through it. So when you are exposed to vicarious trauma, here comes the family therapist, addiction specialist talk. When you are exposed to vicarious trauma and there's nothing you can do about it, or at least you perceive that there's nothing you can do about it, the number one thing that becomes important here is this thing called boundaries. Okay. There are other talks I've done here. If you just go look at our video database, I do whole entire talks on boundaries. So I'm not going to go in depth with it, but I do want to talk about a few things about it before moving on. So the boundary checks that I always have, there's just 6 of them for everybody. I'm not going to go in deep in them again. Please go watch a talk on boundaries. You can watch this in depth. But there's 6 boundary types that you have to check. That when you are experiencing vicarious trauma, and again, vicarious trauma is prolonged exposure to the trauma of somebody else. And by the way, what does vicarious trauma do? The result of vicarious trauma is a deep and profound alteration to your worldview and how you process information in the world. How about that? So not only does vicarious trauma impact you psychologically, emotionally, physically, spiritually, financially, all that kind of stuff, vicarious trauma also changes the way that your worldview, how you view the world. It alters you. It puts filters on the world. So the 6 boundary checks that you always have to check when you're faced with vicarious trauma is time boundaries. How much time am I spending exposed to this? Because the more time you spend exposed to vicarious trauma, the higher probability of you taking that on and making it your own. The next one is physical boundaries. How close do you allow yourself to get? Physically, how close do you allow yourself to get? There are so many family members that, fortunately or unfortunately, it's 2 sides of the same coin, had to put restraining orders on their loved ones because their loved ones, when they use, for example, methamphetamines and they have some underlying bipolar disorder going on, there is a chance that they become violent, right? There's a chance they become violent to the point that weapons are used and the family member says, hey, I'm going to have to put a restraining order on you because I need to protect my physical boundaries, for example. And some family members don't do that. And time after time after time after time, they experience the same exact episode. So your physical boundaries, and that's traumatic. There's a lot of traumatic things in life, but that's one of the most traumatic things in life, to see the person that you know loves you get in an altered state and you're in fear of your life because of that person. Conversational boundaries. What conversations do you allow yourself to get exposed to when you're exposed to the trauma of other people? If you know that there are certain conversations you can't get into, don't get into them. Just don't get into them. If you say, well, how am I going to communicate that to my loved one? Well, use a third party or go to your own counseling, your own therapy, and learn how to process that through yourself, right? A third party, unbiased third party perspective always helps with the delivery of something. Because here's the thing, a family member can say something to their loved one and it will go in one ear, out the other, or it'll just go in and just bounce away. I can say the exact same thing to the same person and all of a sudden they can internalize it. The only reason is because I'm neutral third party and the family isn't, right? The next one is your relationship boundaries. When you're exposed to vicarious trauma, you got to really see it. Is this something I need to expose myself to? Do I need to deepen my relationship here? Do I need to cut ties? Do I need to be more invested or just a distant acquaintance? The last one is personal boundaries. This is something that's very, very personal to each individual. I can't put a label on it because each person is individualized, and they have differences. And the last one is the content. What kind of content you allow to come through when you're experiencing trauma. So this one's kind of cool. I wish I could share my screen with you, but for some reason I don't know how to use it on this platform. So we talked about the cost of caring, and again, in the nursing world, and to the family members. So now that you've given so much of yourself to the addiction of your loved one, and by the way, the ones watching this right now that have been watching this for a while, imagine if the version of you years ago when you were still in the still in the kind of the hamster wheel, still in that codependent enabling hamster wheel, if you were in that, like that person's a completely different version of you than the person watching this right now. So the cost of caring to that person, we hear phrases like, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You can't pour from an empty cup. Persians say, "Ba jiba khali nemitawan bakhshish kard." What that means is, with an empty pocket, you actually can't go and be generous, right? You can't do that. So what is the cost of caring? Well, what was it for you? That's a personal question. What was it for some of the family members that are watching this right now? If you want to type a few things, I mean, I'm just curious to know, what was the cost of caring for you? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that caring is wrong. Caring is a good thing. That's like what makes us. That's one of the elements that makes human beings so special and unique, is that we have this ability to care for each other. I think all animals can do that, but I think human beings, we do it because we could use words, and we can use support, and we can use verbal, nonverbal, body language. We have a lot of ways to demonstrate we care. But what was the cost of caring for you? Because when the cost of caring becomes too much, there's this phenomenon that starts to happen, okay? And it's this thing called compassion fatigue. Compassion fatigue. You remember the first few times you found out that your loved one is struggling with addictions, or something about their health has been impacted negatively? At first, you're all in. What are we going to do? How are we going to do this? Who are we going to get help with? This is, as a family, we're all going to come together. We're going to provide support. We're going to blah, 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 blah. And you do it. And thank God for those days, because that's when a lot of people come closer together. But as time goes on, days go by, weeks go by, months go by, years go by, there is a psychological and emotional exhaustion that happens. And that right there is when the cost of caring starts to go up, 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 because there's no free lunches in life, right? There is no free lunches in life. So as the cost of caring goes up, compassion fatigue goes up. What do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen? And actually, what does happen is this thing called burnout. I mean, there's only so much that we can do as human beings without burning out. Burning out. And yeah, there's a good one. Are there less freedom of scheduling for planned events? Is when in a caregiver role, which I know, Roxanne that just posted that, she's in a full-blown caregiver mode, like 24/7 right now. It's not about addictions, but I think addictions is a part of health too, but she's dealing with something in her life, and there's less freedom. So the cost of caring, and here's the thing, some people might say, I'm willing to do this right now because you look at it as a temporary thing and it's a short period of time, but less freedom of scheduling for plans and events. So that means you have to give up your own wants, needs, desires to care to the cost of others. And that could lead to psychological, emotional, physical, spiritual burnout. So there's a quote here that I like, and it says, if compassion doesn't include yourself, it is incomplete. Okay? A lot of caregivers are very compassionate people, hence caregiving. They actually care about other people. They care about supporting, they care about helping, they care about being there for other people. But if compassion doesn't include yourself, it is incomplete. So what I want to kind of go over right now in this section too is, I've done a talk on self-care before, but I don't think there's ever enough times to talk about self-care. So it's not like, oh, he's talked about self-care 6 months ago or 8 months ago. We got this. This is something we need to address on a daily basis, right? Not a weekly, not a monthly, not on a daily basis. And since I'm not here to talk about this on a daily basis, the best I can do is provide a little bit of reminders to the people watching this, because if you are a family member of someone who is going through something, if you don't have a self-care plan, you will have a hard time going through what it is you're going through. Because here's the thing, I'm not going to sugarcoat and lie about it. Going through someone else's illness and sickness is not easy. Even with a self-care plan, it's not going to be easy. However, does it make it a little bit more manageable? Does it make it a little bit more tolerable? Does it make it a little bit more easy to navigate? The answer is absolutely. Okay, absolutely. So I'm going to pull up my little dimensions here for myself. So this is what you're doing right now. If you want to take a quick note of this, there's 8 dimensions of wellness. Okay, human beings, we have 8 dimensions of wellness. And so let's just look at what they all are. And I want you to say yes or no in your mind if you are actually doing something towards these dimensions. Because if you look at it on a wheel, so imagine a big wheel and it's split up into 8 pizza slices. Each one of these slices is just as important as the other one. Now, does it mean you have to spend the same amount of time in each one of them? No, because some people gravitate more to one thing versus another thing. But the goal is to be able to have balance in this wheel, because without balance, when life throws one more obstacle at you, the chance of you kind of breaking apart or falling down or all that kind of stuff significantly increases. Okay. So the first element, 8 dimensions of wellness, is your physical realm. So you have to look at it this way. On a daily basis, do I do something for my physical health? And some of you might be saying, well, not daily, maybe a couple times a week. Well, here's the thing. What if the amount of stress and pressure starts to increase and increase and increase over the health of your loved one? And all of a sudden, you don't have the physical strength to be able to walk through this process. Guess what happens? Your health starts to break down. And when I say doing something physical on a daily basis, I'm not talking about joining a CrossFit gym class or running a couple miles a day or anything like that. I'm talking about, do you at least go move your body 30 minutes a day? Maybe 15 minutes after each meal, 15 minutes after lunch, 15 minutes after dinner. Do you at least move your body? Do you at least do some light stretching, to make sure that when you do need to care for other people, your joints, your back, your legs are able to function? And then the next element here is your social element. Some of you might be saying, social, what's that? I gave up on my social life a long time ago. Socialization is something that we need. I don't even care if you're an introvert to your core. Socialization is something that we need as human beings. So on a daily basis, do you do something for your social well-being? That doesn't mean you have to go out and do something with people. Do you touch, connect, reach out? Do you send a few text messages? Do you receive some phone calls? Do you connect with somebody through social media platforms? Do you actually go have a lunch with someone or a breakfast with someone or a dinner with someone? Do you FaceTime with someone? Do you stay connected socially? Because what do people do? When someone else in their life is really sick, one of the first things they do is they disconnect from everybody. Because, I don't want to go. I don't feel like it. If I go over there right now, I'm going to take all my stuff with me and I'm going to be it's the exact opposite of what needs to be done at that point. Okay. The next one is spiritually. So on a daily basis, do you do something that feeds your spirit? Now, again, this one could be very, very open-ended. I know some people have some type of a set religious practice they do on a once a week, whether it's a Friday mosque or a Sunday church or something in between. Some people might go and stare at the ocean and hear the waves crash. Some people might pray and meditate throughout the day. Some people might go help out human beings on the streets, go connect with a homeless person and let them know that they matter and their life cares. Some people might go volunteer in soup kitchens and community service places, or maybe help little girl brothers and sisters programs. I don't know what it is, but do you do something on a daily basis to feed your spirit? Volunteer at an animal shelter, If the answer is no, how do you feed your spirit? Because here's the thing, if you don't feed your spirit, guess what's going to happen to your spirit? Eventually, it's going to feel like it's got no life, it's got no soul, it's got no breath. And again, if you weren't going through the caregiving process, the need to do all this stuff might not be as important. That's why people get away with not doing it for so long. But when you are going through it, not only is it not a luxury, it's a necessity. It's a necessity to do these things. The next one is your finances. It's are you doing something on a daily basis to positively impact your finances? Sometimes that could just mean not spending money. They say the fastest way to give yourself a raise is to stop spending. So have you distinguished what your wants are, what your needs are? Have you made the little small sacrifice to not buy that one thing a day that you buy because it just gives you a little bit of relief over time? Have you found different ways? I mean, right now, gosh, there's so many different ways to work from home and create some freedom and flexibility and all that kind of stuff like that. Have you explored different options for yourself? So the financial world and have you set some boundaries? How about that for family members? If family members are always strapped because they keep giving money to their kids, have you told your kid, I can't do this anymore, and actually follow through with that? That could be for something for financial wellness. The next one here is vocational. So I don't know what it is you do or what kind of skills training you have, but on a daily basis, do you actually mindfully look into how you can improve at that? Because we spend so much of our time, energy, and effort at the things that we do in life. So why not? You know how good it feels to actually get better and more proficient and more expertise in what it is we do? So the only way to do that is by continuously training for it. Whatever the heck you learned when you first got on the job is probably obsolete by now anyways for most jobs. So do you actually put some investment in your vocational stuff? The next one is the environment. This one's big for me. It's do you do something on a daily basis to help you connect with environment? Now, this could be your physical space within your home. Decluttering your physical space. How about that? You guys always see this. I mean, I know my wife, Kylie, that put the little comment in there that she was laughing at my little shoulder pads. She does really good. You could tell with the aesthetics of the house. It's not a big space, but it is always clean and clutter-free and well kept and beautiful. And that does something for the environment, for the environment of self. And decluttering is not just good for physical space, but it's also good for the mind. And also just going out and taking a little daycation in nature. When's the last time you ever, for the family members going through the addiction or the trauma of another family member, and you feel like it's just you're overwhelmed? You remember when you were a child, how good it felt to go take a nap underneath a tree? Do you remember that feeling? I know we all have done it. It's like there's nothing like taking a nap underneath a tree. Now, I know some of you are my East Coast family members, and going underneath a tree right now taking a nap, there's a chance that you're going to freeze and wake up frozen. But the concept, I get, you understand what I'm saying, is sometimes we just need a little quick 20, 30-minute nap, an hour nap underneath the tree to connect with the environment. And it does some really profound things for us. For the West Coast people here by the ocean, man, go sit on a bench and just look at that ocean, connect to the environment. Nature is a powerful thing. We actually recharge our batteries when we connect to the environment. The next one is your emotional well-being. So do you do something on a daily basis to check in with your emotions? What am I feeling today? Why am I feeling what I'm feeling? Who can I talk to today? Not socially, but to deal with my emotions. This could be someone like a sponsor, could be like a counselor, a therapist, peers that are talking, that you've met in support groups that are like on the same level of talking about these things. Socially is different. You don't go dump a bunch of your stuff on an innocent bystander that's been your friend for your whole life, right? You deal with them socially. But if it's people from a support group or people that their job is to do this, that's where you process your emotions. And also, like, do you watch things that actually make you laugh? I've shared this stat with you guys that kind of, I don't know where they came up with it, but even if it's true, and I tend to believe that it's true, they say that a child, like a child under the age of 5 or 4 years old, 4-year-old child laugh somewhere between 200 to 300 times a day. Okay. And they say a 40-year-old man or woman laughs 3 to 4 times a day. So what happens there? And sometimes I think we just got to embrace that child of us and to go watch something that makes you laugh, something that just lets you disconnect and just feeds your emotion, or something that actually makes you feel emotions. And even if they're like on the heavier side of things, even if they're on the heavier side of things, just to go feel them. I don't know if any of you have watched Pixar movies, and yeah, Jim, laughter is a great medicine, man. I know me and you always laugh together, and I think it's a definite sign of balance of an individual. People that can't laugh at themselves, and people that can't, find reasons why, life is beautiful and to laugh at it. It just shows they're going through something that they're so blinded. It's kind of like you can't see the forest when you're standing in the trees. If you can't find humor in life because you're so close to something so sad, all you got to do is step back, man. That's why I love stand-up comedians so much, is because they give the perspective of just like humor in the middle of some difficult things. And it's a powerful thing. And the last dimension of wellness is your intelligence, intellectual. Like, do you do something to feed your mind on a daily basis, right? And what does that mean I don't know, for everyone it's different. For some people, it could be reading. For some people, it could be listening to a podcast, an audiobook. For some people, it might be just having an intellectual conversation with someone that they know that feeds that part of their brain. Because these 8 dimensions of wellness, so physical, social, spiritual, financial, vocational, environmental, emotional, and intellectual, they allow us to stay in balance. Now, does it mean you're going to fall out of balance if you miss one of these or a few of these on any given day? No. But the goal, and by the way, I know that's going to happen. Why? Because we're human beings. We're going to go through the up and downs of our moods and our thoughts, our challenges of life. And some days we're going to fall short. But for the most part, on a 365-day timeline, which is 1 year, is can you touch each one of these areas as many times as possible? If the answer is yes, there is a high probability that you are able to live more comfortably despite of the vicarious trauma of others, despite of compassion fatigue. You're going to be able to manage yourself a little bit better. If the answer is no, you're really struggling in life. You're having a hard time going through what you're going through. You're feeling overwhelmed. You're feeling resentful. You're feeling tired. You're feeling emotionally drained. You're feeling like you want to give up. You're feeling like there's no hope. You're feeling like, what's the point? And I'm telling you, that has less to do with what's going on out there and more to do with how you're not taking care of your own 8 dimensions of wellness. And so please take that, rewind that part and watch that part about how much I meant about that. And guess what? I practice what I preach. And why is that important for me? Anyone who works in the field of substance abuse, anyone that works in the field of mental health is constantly exposed to the trauma of other people. So I've told you guys this, I've done over a couple thousand biopsychosocial assessments in my life. So what is a biopsychosocial assessment? You sit down with a human being you've never met before in your life, and they share with you their biological background, their genetic background, their upbringing. They share with you how they were raised, their culture. They share with you their traumas they experienced. They share with you their legal consequences, what they've lost in life, their consequences. So I sit there with a person I've never met before. And obviously when people are sharing these things, they get in a certain emotional state when they're sharing these things. Do you think you can hear someone that's been sexually, physically, emotionally, psychologically abused, neglected, all that kind of stuff in their life? You think you can just download that information, and as soon as that assessment's over, you say, okay, so what am I doing for the rest of the day? It's not that easy. You have any idea when you work in the field of mental health and addictions, how many of your clients, unfortunately, don't make it? How many, last year we had 90,000 drug overdose deaths in 2020. Those are people that sit down and complete biopsychosocial assessments sometimes, you know. And we had a few, you know, this past year. Not active clients, but people, you know them, you know their families, you get to know, you hear their stories, and that happens. Every time that happens, it's traumatic. Like, seriously, it's a traumatic event. It's a human life. So the reason why I'm saying this is, as someone that's been working in the field for, you know, like 12 years now, I've been doing this. This is a big chunk of time for me. It's over a decade. Without taking care of these emotions of wellness, I would be so ineffective. I'd be so burned out. I'd be so unable to do what I do with so much passion. So I say all this because I practice what I preach. And how do you know I practice what I preach? Go watch these videos for the past 2 years that we've been doing them here, and watch how I show up each and every single week. If you find someone who is showing up consistently, I trust me when I tell you this, that the outside world has not been consistent. It's been the most chaotic 2 years of all time. But if I show up consistently every single week, it means because I'm doing these 8 dimensions of wellness consistently, regardless of the environment. So if you look at your own 2 years and you see yourself like this, up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down, it has less to do with someone else going through addictions or some pandemic happening or you know, the world changing as we know it. It has less to do with all that. It has more to do with, while it was going like this, what were you doing? Were you staying committed and consistent to your 8 dimensions of wellness? If you're honest with yourself, you will see a pattern that when things got overwhelming for you, the first thing you did was neglect yourself. And if you get anything out of this talk about the cost of carrying vicarious trauma, compassion fatigue, and burnout, is this: no matter what's happening around you, no matter who you're helping, no matter what they're doing and not doing and all that kind of stuff like that, stay committed to yourself. Do something for each of your dimensions of wellness on a daily basis to the best of your ability. And that's all you can control. So hopefully this talk was, I mean, it was a hybrid of some other talks I did, but I just did this presentation for a very large group of professionals at an addiction conference, a California addiction conference. And so it was kind of, I was excited to share it with you guys. It was a much longer version of it, so I should cut it down. But I will tell you this, that next week I am not going to be here, but I will be back the week after that. So there's just a basketball conflict that I need to be to next Saturday, but that's okay. I'll put a reminder up just in case. I want to make sure nobody puts time aside to be here and I'm not here. But, and all that being said, I will do something. Yeah. I love and appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for your time. Feel free to forward this. You could share this. It's shareable to anybody that you know is taking care of someone else and might need to hear this. As Eileen called it, a critical reminder, because the word critical by definition means life and death, you know. So please go ahead and send this. And I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. And I'll see you soon. Bye, everyone.